At -30°C, the wind bit like glass. Daniel, a retired Marine, sat alone in the dark. Survival was a fight against the world itself. Then, desperate scratching at the window. A shivering German shepherd pleaded with her eyes. He opened the door. What happened next changed his life forever. Before we continue this journey, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. It helps us bring more stories like this to light. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from today? Drop your country name in the comments below. I love seeing how far our stories travel across the globe. It connects us all in ways we don't expect. Your support means everything to our small community here. Thank you for being part of this adventure with us all today. Now, let's return to the frozen wilderness, where the storm was just beginning to scream against the wood. The wind screamed through the endless white wilderness, hurling snow against the windows like shards of glass. Inside a small wooden cabin, Daniel Cross, a retired US Marine, sat in silence beside a crackling fire. His weathered hands rested on a mug of untouched coffee, steam rising into the dimly lit room. Outside, the temperature had plunged to -30°C, the kind of cold that froze breath in the air and turned silence into something heavy and alive. For years, Daniel had lived alone, far from cities and memories that refused to fade. Faces of soldiers, friends, ghosts of a life left behind. The war had ended, but the echoes never did. He looked out the window, watching snow swallow the world, and whispered, "Just another night." But the universe had other plans, because that night, amid the howling storm, someone was coming. And when the first faint scratching hit his window, Daniel's heart jolted. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the storm. It was something desperate, something alive. He turned slowly toward the window, unaware that the decision he was about to make would change his life forever. The scratching grew louder, frantic, persistent against the icy pane. Daniel approached the window cautiously, his hand resting on the old rifle by the door. Every instinct from his years in the Marines telling him to stay alert. But as he drew closer, he saw them. A large German shepherd, her fur dusted with snow, standing protectively over two tiny puppies, shivering at her paws. Her eyes met his through the frost, pleading, desperate. Every muscle in her body screamed for shelter, for warmth, for safety. Daniel's chest tightened. He hadn't seen fear like that in years. Not from a human, and certainly not from a dog. The cold seeped into the bones of the house, but the fire remained. The puppies whimpered softly, pressed against her legs, their small bodies trembling violently in the merciless cold. The mother pawed the window, scraping ice off the glass, letting out a low, mournful whine that echoed in the tiny cabin. Daniel knelt down to their level, exhaling a cloud of warm breath. "I can't take you in," he murmured, torn between caution and empathy. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the German shepherd let out a soft, pleading whine, a sound that pierced Daniel's hardened heart, making the choice inevitable. He opened the door. The storm howled, but inside, a new life was about to begin. The instant Daniel opened the door, the German shepherd bolted inside, shaking violently from the cold. Snow clung to her fur like frost-covered armor, and the two tiny puppies scurried after her, whimpering softly. Daniel closed the door quickly, sealing them away from the brutal wind and the world of ice beyond. He guided them toward the warmth of the fire, crouching carefully to avoid startling them. The mother pressed close, shivering against his legs, her eyes still wide with uncertainty. Daniel lowered himself, speaking in a soft, steady voice. "It's okay. You're safe now." He fetched blankets and wrapped the puppies first, their tiny bodies pressing together for warmth. The mother nuzzled each one, her tail wagging slowly, a gesture of cautious relief. Daniel couldn't help but notice her scars faded from old fights, but still visible, proof of a life harder than any he had known. The fire crackled loudly, casting long shadows against the wall. The wind outside seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the soft breathing of the animals. Hours passed as he fed them scraps of food and warmed water. Slowly, the dogs relaxed, curling beside him on the floor. He watched them breathe easier, tails flicking slightly with each sigh. For the first time in weeks, Daniel felt a spark of something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. The storm raged outside, but inside, a fragile family was forming by the flickering light of the cabin. Daniel studied the dogs carefully. The mother, now calm beside the fire, had a collar barely visible beneath her thick fur. He leaned closer, inspecting it. A small metal tag engraved with a name and a number. His heart skipped a beat. "Military K-9 unit," he murmured, recognizing the format instantly. The metal felt cold to his touch. The realization hit him hard. This wasn't just any dog. She had been trained, disciplined, and had served alongside soldiers. And those tiny puppies, they were her offspring, likely carrying the same potential. Daniel's mind raced. How had she ended up alone in the frozen wilderness? Who had abandoned her, and why? Every instinct from his years in service screamed that this was more than coincidence. Someone had deliberately left them, expecting them to fail, to freeze, to vanish into the snow. The mother nudged her puppies closer, her eyes locking on Daniel with trust. She had chosen him. For the first time that night, Daniel felt the weight of responsibility. He wasn't just offering warmth. He was stepping into a story that belonged to soldiers, loyalty, and survival. And in that cabin, amid the raging blizzard, he silently vowed they would never be abandoned again. The night stretched on dark and deep. The storm had worsened, snow piling high against the cabin walls. Daniel could hear the howl of the wind, sharp and relentless, carrying the distant cry of someone in trouble. His eyes darted across the frozen landscape, and he realized the danger wasn't over. A hiker, lost and exposed, had wandered into the blizzard. "Ranger," Daniel whispered, signaling the German shepherd. The dog rose immediately, muscles coiled, ears pricked. She understood instinctively. This was her next mission. Bundling the puppies into a blanket, Daniel handed them to her. With careful precision, she leapt into the snow, moving like a shadow across the white expanse. Daniel followed, trudging through knee-deep drifts, calling out as the wind whipped at his face. Hours passed as they tracked the faint footprints in the snow. Finally, they found the hiker, shivering uncontrollably, almost unconscious. The dog circled, nudging him gently, urging him towards safety. Daniel wrapped the man in a spare coat, while the German shepherd stood watch, growling at every noise. Together, they navigated back to the cabin, the trio relying on each other to survive. By the time they reached the warmth of the fire, the hiker was safe. Daniel looked at the dog. All in his eyes, her loyalty, bravery, and instinct had saved a life and proved the unbreakable bond between human and canine. The night was long, but they endured. The hiker whispered thanks, but Daniel only looked at the dog. She stood tall, despite the exhaustion weighing down her frame. Morning light filtered through windows, casting a soft glow on the cabin. The storm passed, leaving the world outside sparkling white. Daniel watched the shepherd and puppies playing near the fire. Their fur was dry, bodies warm, and for the first time there was peace. He reached out, scratching the mother's ears. "You chose the right place," he said quietly. She nuzzled his hand, eyes calm, reflecting trust he hadn't seen in years. Daniel realized the truth. In saving them, he healed himself. Years of solitude, ghosts of war, memories, all felt lighter now. The dogs brought life and purpose back into his home. He smiled, lifting a puppy into his lap. The little one looked up, wagging at ease. Outside, sun-warmed snow. A new day began. Daniel knew one thing clearly. This family would never face another cold night. In that cabin, 2 lives changed by one selfless act.